Congratulations on this. It is tremendous. It's absolutely brilliant.
Thank you very much.
Tell us how you guys just embodied the characters.
Well, we rehearsed a lot. First of all, we did these dances and these songs and these comedy routines. We spent weeks and weeks and weeks. You know, I've done plenty of films where there's no rehearsal at all, where you're just trying to, catch lightning in a bottle every day. That was not the case in this one. These were vaudevillians. These guys. They came up in the music hall tradition, and repetition was the key to getting something to look so nonchalant. So that was the beginning of it, and then we had a lot of help with Mark Coulier, the prosthetics designer, and
Toby Sedgwick.
Steve, how did you begin to embody this guy?
Well, through all the stuff you said, and really, you've got a box of tools. You do research. You look at the movies like everyone can. You read books. You try and, I got to listen to phone calls that people made to Stan Laurel when he was available in the phone book in the 1960s. People would call him up, and they would play these, they'd record these conversations, so we used some of that. And then working with each other, because there's so much stuff you can find out, and then there are gaps in your knowledge where you have to use your judgment. And the same way that Jeff as a writer uses judgment, we as actors have to use our judgment and say, I think they would be something like this. And then you give it your best shot. But you're trying to make a guess with the best information that you have at the time. And that's the missing part of the puzzle, which is the real hard work. Because we do all the dances, we do all the routines, but the hard stuff is trying to get under their skin and do something that seems real to the fan base and to ordinary people who watch the movie and say, okay, I buy it,
You say about the dancing, you do know that now at every party you ever go to, you're going to be asked to do the dances from this.
You think?
I don't know. I think I could probably, if you gave us half an hour, we could figure it out, but I'd be a bit rusty, I think.
I can do that bit with the foot, but that's the limit of what I can do.
Well, that's the brilliant thing about that dance, actually.
Yeah.
It's funny that you mentioned the dance and knowing it and how to learn it, because the joke of that dance, and it is a similar joke to a lot of their jokes, the joke of the dance is an escalation in complexity. So it starts with just literally a toe tapping.
That's right.
Any idiot could do that. Tap your toe to a song. And then it gets a little more, a little more, a little more, and suddenly they're doing Highland flings and donkey kicks and all this crazy stuff. That's just another version of the same joke of like, come help me clean up my house. I've had a party, my wife is coming home, and the house ends up burned to the ground by the time Stan gets done helping him. It's a brilliant distillation in the comedy of escalation.
Without stripping it back too much, essentially, it's a buddy movie, isn't it? The relationship between these two.
Well, I would call it a love story rather than a buddy movie. It's more than buddies.
Yeah,
they loved each other really deeply, and they were connected for their entire working lives. I mean, that's a very unique situation to be in. There's not too many performers in the history of the world that spent their entire known careers together. Yeah, that's pretty interesting.
Yeah.
I have to say, and I will admit to it, you made me cry. I was amazed at you've got the humour in there, but also there is a real emotion in this film.
Yeah, I think for any film to be successful that doesn't have lots of explosions and special effects, you have to connect with people on some sort of emotional level, because making people laugh is fun and enjoyable, but it unless you have poignancy in there, it's sort of forgettable. And Laurel Hardy had poignancy themselves in their comedy. There was something, at the end of the day, there was the kind of, you cared about them. You didn't just laugh at them, you cared about them.
There's a humanism behind it.
And I think we sort of lifted that from their films and tried to put that into this film, which is that, there is a poignancy.
I'm glad you mentioned the emotional part of the film, because we live in an age of dazzling films, dazzling technical things, superhero movies that you can't even conceive, like how do they possibly do that? Dazzle, dazzle, dazzle. And I think people are very starved right now for emotion and for empathy.
I agree.
We live in a world that's so divided and there's so much conflict that our film is somewhat of a tonic for the times.
It's funny, but because I think
it's about people loving each other.
I think
It's a beautiful thing.
old Hollywood used to do this a lot more often and more effectively at its best. Some of the great old Hollywood movies, some of the classics, do have that, that real journey, that emotional connection, and it doesn't happen so often anymore. So when it does come along, it's like a breath of fresh air.
Well, look, I mean, I remember Laurel Hardy from the Hanna-Barbera films. From now on, I'm going to remember it for you guys. Genuinely, it's one of my favourite films ever. I really loved it.
Thank you very much.
I hope you have lots of success with it.
Cheers.
Appreciate that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Thanks.